No role plays, no conference calls, no BS. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader. This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Hey everyone, this is Chris.
And Lorenzo.
And welcome to our Best of Saturday series. Now that we have hundreds of episodes, we get a lot of listeners asking us where to start.
So we'll be selecting some of our most popular episodes to share each Saturday from our years of podcasting. We hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, today what I want to talk about is something that, once again, I got this idea from our live Hacking Your Leadership Clubhouse session that we did on Sunday night of last week. And I was blown away by the contributions. I think the more we do this, the more people are joining, the more great stories we're hearing, the more people are kind of seeing this as a regular space, and they're coming to play with us. And the engagement is just so different from recording podcast episodes. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're not stopping this part of it, but I just get so much out of this stuff. And what I want to talk about is an idea that came from a comment made by one of our followers in Clubhouse. Her name is Glyne, and she's from Toronto, Canada. And she told a story that was just so powerful. And it's about the differences in a leader's responsibility of being nice versus being kind. And, on its surface, obviously, they seem very, very similar. But the way that it was put, and then the stories we told around sharing our experiences and doing one versus the other, and how it's important to do both, but different times, different things are appropriate depending on the situation. It was such a powerful conversation, and I thought it deserved kind of a further conversation about this for our listeners. So the first thing I'll ask you is, what do you think the difference is between being nice and being kind if you're a leader of people?
I think it's a great conversation, and it's so funny because we talk a lot about on the podcast about how words matter and definitions matter, and making sure that you're aligned on what you say and what you mean when you say it. And when I think of like nice versus kind, I think about the responsibility of a leader, which is twofold. It's to bring to life the objectives of the organization. It's to make sure that the what you're responsible for and wherever the results are, that the output is quality and that it's consistent over time. So you kind of have this real responsibility to the job itself, which is why you have, collect a paycheck and why a company counts on you. And then you have the part of being responsible and accountable for the development of others as a leader, which is making sure that they have, the best possible environment, that they have the best possible opportunity to be successful, and that they know that they can count on you, trust you, work in a safe space and an environment where they can be their unique selves, but also make sure that they are there to meet the expectations of the job. And so for me, when I hear nice versus kind, that's immediately what I think of, is that I can be kind to people. I can be professional to people. I can be kind in a conversation where I have to talk to somebody about their lack of performance, where it's like, I'm going to be professional about it. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to have some empathy, but I'm going to be very clear, and I'm going to be very, very specific in my thoughts, in my feedback, in my assessment of their performance, but I'm going to do it in a way that's not personally attacking. It's not mean-spirited. It's not talking down to them. It's not insulting them, but I'm going to be kind in that conversation, versus nice, which is, in my mind, of being nice is like, you're just nice to everybody. You want people to feel that you're being nice to them. You're worried more about how they feel about the conversation or the moment or about you than you are about your responsibility of a leader to make sure that they are doing their job in the most effective way possible, but doing it in such a way that if they are looking to improve, you're there to help them to improve, but you're also being very clear on whether or not they are meeting or exceeding an expectation.
Yeah, I love that difference, and it's such a profound difference. I think if I look back at my leadership career and I look back at the times when I was able to be one or the other or both, because again, you got to be able to be both, and it really depends on the circumstances. I think the times when I've been able to choose which one is most appropriate are when I've earned the right to do so. And it's like, I can't tell you how many people I've come across where, it's the, I had to give him the tough love, it's the constructive criticism. I had to give him a strong dose of reality, but that was kindness, like the clarity is kindness, which I agree with, right? Like all these things we talk about being kind is making sure your employee kind of knows what's up, knows the score, has a confident grasp on the reality of the situation when it comes to the likelihood of them being able to move up if they want to, the likelihood of them being able to earn more money if they want to, the likelihood of them being able to, use what they're doing to go do something else or transition or whatever their short and long-term goals are. They need to know accurately what the reality is of their situation and how likely those goals are to be realistic. And it's my job as a leader to make sure that they're there. Now, whether or not they believe me will depend on whether or not they already believe I'm bought into helping them get there. Because if I have an ulterior motive, and that ulterior motive is how can I drain as much productivity out of this person before they burn out and leave to make my job easier, well, now my advice is suspect. My tough love, so to speak, on what they're doing wrong is looked at with, oh, yeah, he says that what I'm doing is wrong, but I see what's really behind the curtain there in terms of what Chris is trying to do, and it doesn't land the same way. And so I could walk away from it going, yep, I was kind to Lorenzo, and he thought he was, the next person in line for a promotion, and I made sure he knew that was not the case because he needed that. But if I didn't have the relationship with Lorenzo to do that in a way that let him walk away from the conversation thinking, wow, that's some really, really good stuff. I need to continue this conversation because I want to make sure I'm on the straight and narrow towards this thing that I want. And Chris was right. I'm not. There's some things I'm doing right, but there's some things I need to change. If that's not how you left the conversation, then it doesn't matter how kind I think I'm being to you. I haven't earned the right to do that. And I think that's such a powerful part of it.
No, I agree. And as you were talking through that, I was thinking about the fact that sometimes when people say things like, kind of this idea that being very clear with expectations and following up and providing people with clear feedback and, kind of this idea of like, we want to call it transparency when we tell somebody that they didn't do a good job or that the level of expectations higher for them. What I see happen quite often with leaders is that they don't do the same thing for themselves, and they don't actually allow their people to do that to them. Like they want to be like, well, no. I'm the leader, so therefore I get to be the kind one, which means I get to be the clear one. But no, Right. You're not allowed to come to me as the leader and then tell me I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah, how dare you?
How dare you? Right? But it's so funny because I think that's a big part of kindness is that it's also like understanding that as a leader, the role that you have and the part that you play in a lot of people's lives. You're responsible for giving them, examples and testimonies and stories, which I think from the Clubhouse app, which the other part that I loved about the question was like, what was your most memorable leadership failure?
Right.
And it was in this dialogue that we kind of, that Glenn had talked about this, kind versus nice element. But considering and thinking about the fact that, if you're not discussing your failures, if you're not showing your people that it's okay to make mistakes, that it's okay to screw things up, that it's okay to make a wrong call as a leader, that you can survive that and move forward with that. If you're not doing that, you're not actually being kind. Like you're not. To me, you're not creating an environment where you are being kind because they think that you are this, perfect being who's never made a mistake and will only ever call out their, mistakes or misfortunes. But I think to truly be kind, you have to be willing to share yours as well.
Yeah, I think when I have failed to do this correctly, there's another kind of scenario where this can kind of rear its ugly head that is different than what I talked about first. And this is the idea of trying to win somebody over. We talk about, StrengthsFinder and Gallup and everything, and my number one is woo. And so the idea of winning others over is a big deal to me. I think it's something I excel at. And I have been in situations where I've led teams of people where there is somebody on the team who doesn't want to be led by me. They just don't. And and for whatever reason, either we just don't get along, or maybe they wanted the leadership spot and they didn't get it, or for whatever reason, it's just they're not bought in. And my my knee jerk is to win them over with support and kindness and in the context of this episode, niceness, so to speak, not kindness, niceness, to win them over and to cut them some slack. If they react poorly to something or they're in a bad mood, I own that myself. I think, well, they're in a bad mood because they're unhappy with what's going on, and it's my job to get them into a better mood. It's my job to win them over and get their buy-in to the structure of how things are, because if I can only do that, then they'll be high performing like everybody else. And it is an absolutely impossible thing to do. You can't do it that way. All I end up doing when I do things that way is I cause that employee who already doesn't think highly of me to think even less of me, because now they are judging my own ability to hold people accountable because I'm not holding them accountable. And as much as they won't say, I'm judging you because you're not holding me accountable, that's subconsciously what's happening. And I'm losing their respect further by not doing it. And so it's not that I shouldn't be nice. It's not that I shouldn't try to help them through this journey that might be frustrating to them. It's that can't come before the accountability piece. That can't come before the reality piece. They have to go hand in hand. The niceness and the cutting a person some slack, that is what potentially earns you the right to hold them accountable. But if you don't follow it up with that accountability, they will think that niceness that you're giving them is like your way of kind of trying to buy them off, as opposed to actually trying to create a relationship with them. And I have done this the wrong way many times, and I've done it the right way sometimes too. But it's not something that just comes naturally to me. I have to really make a commitment to doing it and being thoughtful and purposeful about it.
Yeah, what's funny too is I think of like that niceness element and how that can get you in trouble as a leader because you're not really considering being kind to the rest of the team.
Oh, it's a great point. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because like you so want to get that person, and it's one of the the SBOs or the strength based organization elements that you and I share is I'm an includer, positivity, woo, belief, and developer. Mm-hmm. But that woo part is big for both of us. Is that we're constantly looking to try to figure out like how can I connect with this person? What is it that I can do that we can be aligned, that I can get them on the page of the team, that we can bring them along. Like those things are just innate in both of us. But I think that is doing more harm than good for the larger team, because if let's say you've got somebody who is disengaged, that everybody looks at and it's like they don't really want to be here, or they're always negative, or they don't want to be led, or they always have a problem with a leader, like all these types of things. And then they see you being nice to that person mm-hmm. constantly. And they're just like, well, wait a minute. Like how did they earn that type of a relationship? Why are they allowing that? Why are they being nice to that person?
Yeah.
When that person is not nice to us.
Right.
Right. And so then as a leader, you're having a negative impact on being kind to everybody else, because you're allowing there to be somebody in there that is not, team first, that is not pulling their weight, that is not engaging in such a way that it's helping to build your culture up and go. And I think that was one of the points that we got to in the dialogue the other night, was saying, at some point, you have to very nicely tell them they don't work here anymore, that they shouldn't work here anymore,
right?
Or kindly offer them another opportunity somewhere else. Like, I don't know, but it can be done, and like I said, it doesn't have to be personal, and it doesn't have to be mean. And I think that when you're a leader for a good amount of time, you really start to understand that when you are having those conversations with people, it's not about a personal vendetta or just trying to fire somebody. There's an element there of empathy and of just trying to get them in a space or a place that's better for them, because clearly that type of an attitude or that type of feeling towards you or the team means that they're not in a good place now. And so, as a leader, you've got to have that dialogue and conversation to go ahead and invite them to go somewhere else sometimes.
Right. I think the history of that person and the team plays a big part of it too. Meaning, if a person got along with the team and there weren't these issues, and it was something else, like they didn't get the role they wanted, they didn't get the spot they wanted, and now they're kind of disengaging, I think there is a short-term element of making that accommodation, as long as, again, it doesn't come at the sacrificing of accountability. It's hand in hand. But I think it's okay to give each employee different things based on the needs of that employee in the moment. If an employee needs some extra pep talk, if an employee needs some, some extra kind of, therapy, so to speak, from their leader on a short-term basis, I don't see that as a problem or as problematic, or like I'm taking something from the rest of the team, because each member of the team should be able to expect that if they're in a similar situation, they would get the same accommodation. But it can't be 3 or 6 months worth, and it can't come at the expense of accountability. They can't see constant, lowering of productivity or performance of that employee, 2, 3, 4 months in a row without any change in accountability or that. They have to go together. And I think employees by and large understand that when they go hand in hand, that's okay. And that you won't be judged harshly for it by your other employees. But we've talked about it from day one, when, saying we have this, we did an entire episode on this. Saying yes to anything means saying no to something else by definition, because we have a finite amount of time as leaders. There's only so many hours in the day that we spend on leadership before we're doing other things, and prioritizing that time in the right areas and with the right people in order to maximize the individual growth of people and the team performance is a large part of leadership. And so when I say yes to somebody, meaning here's my weekly therapy session with Lorenzo, who's just checked out, maybe that works for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I see a turnaround. And if I'm starting to see a turnaround, then it's like, great, that investment was worth it. But if I'm not seeing that turnaround, if I'm being nice perpetually and I'm seeing no movement, so the relationship is entirely coming from me with nothing reciprocated, then the relationship has lost parity. And at that point, I can't continue to do that. I'm just kind of hoping that one day Lorenzo's going to come along for the ride. At some point, I have to say, my feelings for you haven't changed. I want you to succeed here. I want you to be able to integrate back into this team and to re-engage, because I know you're capable of doing it. I have to let you know that these numbers aren't where they need to be, or this performance or this behavior is not where it needs to be, and that needs to change. And so I'm always going to be kind to you from a standpoint of, treating you with respect, treating you like an adult. But at some point very shortly here, these conversations are going to have another element to it besides you and I just talking about how you're going to re-engage again. That needs to come very, very quickly in that process, or again, you'll reach a point of no return. You'll never be able to turn that relationship around.
Absolutely. And with that, I first want to thank our patrons and all of those that joined the stage last week on the Clubhouse app. So Shauna, Glyne, Angela, Rayner, Frank, Nancy, Daniel, Zachary, and Garen, thank you for attending, and we really appreciate your support. And now it's time for this episode's 1 Minute Hack.
The 1 Minute Hack.
All right, for this episode's 1 Minute Hack, here's what I want you to do. Get out your pen and paper, and I want you to write down the first names of every single person reporting to you on your team, every one of them. And then I want you to put each one into one of 2 categories, either great relationship or relationship needs work. Not bad relationship, but anything that is less than what you want it to be. And that's all subjective, what you want it to be. All of the people who fall into that category of this relationship needs work, it's not where you want it to be, I want you to have a conversation with each of those people one-on-one at your earliest convenience to talk about your commitment to them as a leader in helping them get to where they want to go. And it starts by finding out exactly where they want to go, having them reiterate their goals to you, both short-term and long-term, and then telling them that you're committed to helping them get to those goals. You're committed to helping them do the things they need to do from a behavioral and performance standpoint to be able to be most likely to achieve those goals. And then asking them to hold you accountable if they see behavior from you as the leader that doesn't align with the support you're telling them you're going to give them. Because sometimes clearing the air and making sure that you're kind of putting your cards out on the table and saying to your people, this is what my job is as a leader, is to be committed to you to help you get there, and we have performance expectations that have to be achieved at the same time, having that part of the same conversation can go a long way to getting your employees who are not performing as well as they should be to kind of step it up a notch, and to understand that when you come at them with things like, hey, this is dropping a little bit, this performance needs work, this productivity needs work, these metrics need work, that you're coming from a good place. And you can have a dialogue about it in the context of how improving these numbers is going to help them achieve their goals, not how improving these numbers is going to help you as the leader achieve your goals.
Yeah, I think it's a great 1-minute hack and a good reminder. The reality is you're going to have relationships that completely go across the entire spectrum, especially if you have larger teams where you're going to have to really consider the people that are just naturally, that are easy to work with, and maybe they align with how you see the work and how you see things being done. Then you've got people that maybe you don't align with, but that you're friendly with, you don't have any issues with them at all. And then you've got people that you're thinking like, I really wish I could get more out of them, or I had a better relationship with them, or I could have better dialogue with them. And I think that this type of a 1-minute hack is super helpful in beginning some of those that dialogue, or maybe sometimes restarting that dialogue to get you both into a better place.
Yeah, I agree with that. If there's one thing that I could go back and tell my younger leadership self, is to not think that every relationship with every employee is this dichotomy of they'd want to, come to my kids' baptisms and be at family parties, or they hate me. Like there's a spectrum, and your employees are going to fall all along that spectrum. And there's nothing wrong with having relationships with some of your employees where it's not necessarily, chummy, we're going to go out for a beer afterwards, where it is just a professional working relationship and nothing more than that. That doesn't stop you from being committed to helping them achieve their goals. And it won't stop them from seeing that in you, even if the two of you may not click from a very personal standpoint.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.